Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Crypto Hipster Podcast. This is your host, Jamil Hassan, the Crypto Hipster, where I interview founders, entrepreneurs, executives, thought leaders, amazing people all around the world of crypto and blockchain. And today I have an amazing guest. I'm looking forward to this because the topic seems really interesting, and I hope you find it too. Um, I have the CEO and a co-founder of Hinkal. His name is Georgi Koreli. Georgie, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Very welcome. Thanks for being here. So let's kick things off first before we get into the meat and potatoes of this. What is your background, and is it a logical background for what you're doing now?
So my background, I started my career as professional wrestler. So I was twice world champion in Sambo wrestling before I moved to investment banking. And then I spent 5 years doing investment banking. And then I got to Stanford where I did my MBA and master's. And that's where we started Hinkal.
Sambo wrestling?
Yes.
I know what WWE wrestling is. What is Samba?
Sambo is similar to judo. It's a Soviet Union professional wrestling. For example, like a lot of UFC players came from Sambo actually. Habib was professional Sambo wrestler because before he became UFC fighter. So yeah, it's pretty well known in post-USSR countries.
Interesting. Interesting. I I, I love WWE. I've been a wrestling fan since I was 7 years old. So I um,
It's
just
a, it's a real version of wrestling.
Yeah, the real version. Yes, the real version. So I want to find out, hey, Cole, what's it all about, and why is privacy, like in crypto, more important now than it's been since the inception, really?
Yeah, so I think the main reason it's becoming more popular and now really hitting the mainstream is because we finally saw the major roadblocks that we had with crypto, right? So crypto historically had scalability problems, right? And it was clunky. RAMs were the biggest problem, right? So people couldn't on-ramp, off-ramp properly. Stable coins also, they were kind of big, right, in emerging markets, but then they were not supported by regulators. And finally, now we are getting to the place where scalability is solved. RAMs are almost solved in most of the countries. Regulation is super favorable, right, to crypto with a new administration. And this basically like everything in this triangle aligned for blockchains to finally substitute traditional banking rails. And if you think about traditional banking rails, what's happening right now with crypto, right? Okay, like you're a TradFi guy, you're moving like there's a crypto, right, which is faster, efficient, right? Amazing ecosystem. But what is the sacrifice? You're moving from private banking account to fully public blockchain account that everyone can see, trace your counterparty, see how much money you have. So this is just, not the like unscalable. So and then we are solving exactly this problem. You're moving from private banking account to private blockchain account powered by us with zero knowledge proofs, and you have same guarantees and whole composability and advantages of blockchains.
So you're moving private to private, and then is that the interim step, the private, and then you're going to go private to public, or how it's going to stay?
You never become public, right? So you have private banking account, you move to private blockchain account powered by us, and you do any arbitrary transaction. You want to swap, send money, you want to receive money from someone. No one can see your wallet data, how much money you have, history of transaction.
Got it. And that's important for these institutions that don't want anybody to see the data.
Not
Um,
just institutions, right? Because first is institutions, second is think about payments, right? Now, stablecoin regulations coming to reality in the US, right? And then if you are doing payroll, right? So payrolls are really moving now to stables. And if you're sending your money like to different countries and then your employees can just look at the transaction and see how much you sent to other employees and your competitors can see it, right? That's the biggest problem.
yeah, I would think so. I would think so. So that goes into the topic we're going to discuss. You say you claim that public wallets are dead. Why are they dead? Yeah, they look alive to me, but why are they dead, and what can we do about that?
Mhm. So public wallets are dead because we are finally getting to the era of real world adoption of blockchains outside of just pump and dump or like trading, right? Gambling and other use cases, right? Related to swaps. So what we are like, we are really entering the era where like normal people can start using them, can pay other people across the globe without any friction, 24/7 for cheap, right? And for this to happen, they shouldn't expose the data of your wallet to everyone, right? Because even if you're paying, now we have this, think about payment cards, right? Like Safe issued one. There are like more that, basically like so many players issued. So there's on-chain wallet, right, that is linked to your payment. And now someone can basically, be in the shop with you. You're paying with this card. And someone can just monitor the transaction and immediately see that, okay, like $3 was just charged. He cannot see Starbucks, but he can understand that, okay, like it's you and see all your wallet data, right? And in emerging markets, right, this is the biggest threat, even in America, to be frank, right? So public wallets are dead because they were not the solution to scaling blockchains to real world adoption. And the only solution that can scale it is private wallets that we call invisible wallets.
So say I have would that would say I had visible would that cut down the amounts like recently you had Bybit who got hacked by was it $1.5 billion by North Korean hackers, right? And the hack wasn't in Bybit, it was at the Genesis wallet, right? So how can what you're building, how can the private wallets you're creating help eliminate, hopefully eliminate these foreign hacker and hacking nations from stealing from everybody around the world?
Yeah. So privacy really eliminates the cause of the problem, right? So now everyone talks about, okay, like this wallet could be more secure, right? Because Safe's UI was compromised and then targeted to the signers of Bybit, and signers all obviously, right, that leaked their IP data, so they had phishing attack. So, but no one really thinks about fundamental problem that happened, right? Before it was compromised and really got there, they realized that there is a wallet, there's IP address, and these people own these addresses, right? So there was this transparency side of the ownership of this asset and who is really managing. And if with our solution or with, basically privacy solution there, no one will know who are the signers. No one will know who own this wallet.
Right. So there's been a lot of feedback over the years, pushback on cryptos like Monero. Like they wanted to ban Monero, but it seems like Monero would have helped. And then you are you're an upgrade and improvement from the Monero, right? So how does that evolution work, and where do you see where things are headed from the privacy perspective?
Yeah, so when Monero started, Monero, Zcash, right, first gen privacy, uh, the problem, I mean, not the problem, but it was great implementation, right, of the solution. It's a separate blockchain, separate coin, right? You buy this coin and then it maintains privacy attributes. It has some bad attributes as well because you needed to wait 30 minutes before the uh, confirmation of transaction, right? You can only transact from this coin to yeah, with basically their coins, right? So, and what is happening now, you are fragmenting yourself, right, from the main liquidity to the core, private primitive. So you're sacrificing capital efficiency. It means that your money are not really earning any money, right? Then you're sacrificing composability, right? Because if someone that you who you are paying doesn't want Monero, right? Like then he still has to receive and then convert to whatever coin he wants on Ethereum, on Solana, right? Um, so and that's the whole pain, right? Because this is a separate thing outside of where you really act, right? And public blockchains that have the biggest adoption, right? Ethereum, EVM, and Solana. So the problem that we solve is this, right? We are saying, okay, you don't need to go anywhere. You have your experience on Ethereum EVM chains. Now you can have the same experience with full privacy without any sacrifice of your capital efficiency, right? You do any transaction, interact with any dApp, pay, receive money with whoever you want, any token, in a full privacy powered by us.
Interesting. So, um, the blockchain has three elements. One's composability, one's speed or security, and one's transparency, right? So we're talking about transparency here, right? So they used to be thought of, and I've always thought it this way, that transparency is a feature of blockchains. And I think what you're saying is that transparency of blockchains is a barrier. So why is it a barrier instead of a feature?
Mhm. Yeah, so I think, every innovation like brings some advantages, right? But then it's also some advantages become barriers, right? That we have to unlearn to build something great. And this is one of these barriers that, like, one of the advantages initially, right? But because all these transactions are verifiable, you can use for supply chain, you can use for payments, all these use cases that ultimately became a barrier because transparency should be unlearned from these three attributes of blockchain. And what we should substitute transparency with is verifiability, right? So all these transactions are verifiable on chain. And when people do private transaction with our invisible wallet, right, or the dApp, this transaction the same way are verifiable. So you can prove that it's you who transacted. But the magic is that it doesn't appear as you on chain. It's our smart contracts appears on chain for all type of transactions. So I think now we are finally stepping in the era of unlearning this third attribute that just presents the biggest barrier for adoption of blockchains.
So we unlearn it, and we're going to learn how. What are we going to learn instead?
We should learn verifiability now, right? If transaction is verifiable, it's still blockchain based, right? It's provable. So you can prove in the same manner that it's you who transacted, who did this transaction. But you don't want this transaction to appear on the blockchain on behalf of your wallet, right? Because that's all money you have, right? Why do you want everyone to know how much money you have? That's a problem like for criminals, for hacks, for someone, right? And you probably heard about story about like Ledger, for one of the Ledger co-founders, when someone got his finger, right? Because they want to steal money. So there are so many bad precedents that finally, it's time to just completely remove this from all the like positive attributes and think about the solution, right? Which is verifiable privacy.
Interesting. So let's talk about verifiable privacy then. I used to work at AIG as corporate America for a long time, and I built databases. I said, this is a great transition coming in blockchain. You know, I see companies are going to have to go from Web 2 to Web 3. They're going to have to, at some point in their lives, or they'll probably die if they don't. How can privacy wallets help move corporations move from the Web 2 world to the Web 3 world, especially in DeFi?
Mhm. So ultimately, it's still multifaceted thing, right? So for corporations to move, they should have not only privacy, but also compliance, right, that they have on the banking account. They should make sure that there is no counterparty risk that they're surfacing, right, in the blockchain. So privacy is one of the core pillars there, right, for them to make the same level of experience, to have the same level of experience, right, in terms of people seeing, right? And I think, one of the good examples here is like when Franklin Templeton tokenized their assets on Ethereum, I think, they immediately had dust of their accounts, right? So basically people sent shit ton of like shit tokens to their accounts. And then they were like looking at the blockchain and seeing like, wow, this like everyone. And that's one of the advantages that actually XRP has. XRP has this function. You can really decide who you want to accept, right? As or restrict from transaction standpoint. So so many issues should be solved. So privacy solves this. Okay, no one can see your data, right? It's verifiable. There is private address. No one can dust your wallet, right? But then we have to also think about how can we solve counterparty risk problem. And this is also solved right now, right? So there are a lot of tools that allow you to really analyze different pools and like who you're transacting with.
So what is the counterparty risk problem that needs to be solved? I think people talk about that all the time, but I don't actually know what it is. I think there's a lot of them. So
I think there are many counterparty risks, by the way. I agree with you absolutely. One of the counterparty risks that I'm talking about is the risk of when you transact with different parties. Yeah, and when you let's say do AMM swap, right? So you wanna buy USDC with your USDT or ETH. You don't want to buy it from illicit individual, right? So you want to buy it from legit party. But then what actually funds do now, and there are tools, they analyze the whole pool, right? AMM pool, let's say on Uniswap, ETH USDC pool. And then they can understand what is the dirtiness of this pool based on the LPs that provided liquidity there. And then if the answer is like there's Lazarus Group provided it, right, and it's like 50% of the pool, they will never transact with this pool. That's why now we also see this, more permissioned pools happening. So we are also moving to this arena of like more compliant DeFi. But it's yeah one of the issues that other members are solving now.
got it. So I gotta admit, I'm a little jealous of the Zach XBT guy because he recognized that the Bybit hack was by the Lazarus Group, and then he got the bounty. I'm like, most of the time it's going to be the Lazarus Group. How do you get in there first, right? Um, but say it was private, say everything was private, right? How could you tell? How could you still, if you're hack, who the hacker was?
Mhm. So, but private is not the hacker, right? Private is like the owner of the wallet and signers. So here, what we are talking about, like privacy of the signers, right, and the wallet. So no one like if Lazarus Group basically wants to look at the wallet, they see basically aggregated smart contract with all the assets, but they will never be able to see who are the signers or who are the what are the wallets that they sign.
Okay, so they're not able to. Okay, so I would say that's helpful then. I would say that's really helpful. Um, you mentioned interesting. You mentioned stable coins. So I've been going through. I'm still trying to understand this concept after 3 years. I still don't get it right, but zero knowledge, right? What is the role of zero knowledge when it comes to building stable coins? And then you also mentioned compliance. How do you use zero knowledge to achieve that?
Mhm. Yeah, so the what zero knowledge does is it allows you to prove any arbitrary data without revealing the owner of this data. And in our case, right, in case of privacy, zero knowledge proof does proving that it's you who are the owner of the assets without revealing who you are. And this allows you to basically like do transaction on behalf of smart contract. So you don't need to appear on chain and share your private address to anyone. And this way, right, that what we preserve and guarantee privacy of the sender of transaction and same for recipient.
I'm trying. Did you go to ETH Denver this year?
I'm here right now.
Okay, very cool, very cool. Welcome, welcome. Thanks for joining me from ETH Denver. I had some cancellations from the. I'm glad you joined me. So, um, I went to. I haven't ever been to ETH Denver, but I went to Consensus last year in May. Had a bunch of conversations with people saying zero knowledge is the future. It's the next way to bring on the next $10 trillion. It's going to achieve in the next 6 months. And I'm looking at the market in this past few weeks, and I'm like, it's just a little under 2 trillion because half of the market got wiped away. What is the future of zero knowledge? Is it still a thing? Is it still the future? Is it the way, or is it died down a little bit? What is where are we at?
I think the problem with crypto crowd is it's so this ideologically optimistic about everything what will happen right immediately that you always like oh like like FHE happens in a few months right and you see that FHE now like it does like 5 transactions per second right so I think that's a problem of the crowd as well, right? Because you really immerse yourself with this optimism that sometimes has nothing to do with reality, right? Because you have to wait for a few years. So we take a more like fundamental approach to the things because we joined from, TradFi, as well as built in Web 2 before. So the approach we take it, okay, like we have zero knowledge proof. What is the overhead of zero knowledge proof that people can have, right, when they do transaction? And when we just started, the problem was that, okay, we have this zero knowledge proof, but then it costs a lot of money, right, to do proof generation. And then it also, it like people have to wait. There is a latency, right? And then the question is a trade-off fair? So are people willing to sacrifice this performance, right, in time for privacy? And the answer is many times like people don't care as much, right? So you have to really find this battle-tested use cases. And that's why we initially focused with our like first iteration of our product, we focused on institutions with large sums of money, right? And then like if they have 5 million managing on chain and the transaction cost, let's say, $20, it's still reasonable for them because proportion, right, in like it to the whole amount is very low. So, and that's basically like that was our very good guiding point because we were able to say, okay, like we built for this super sophisticated customer. He wants performance. He wants like better pricing. He wants verifiability, data set. And this allowed us to really build for the best, like the most sophisticated customer and improve, right? So now 2 years in, right, fast forward 2 years, we achieved the performance that allows us to embed ZK in a way that people feel like a real transaction, right? They don't differentiate if they transact on Phantom, MetaMask, or Hinkal wallet, right, or DApp. So we really like we were thinking for 2 years, like with and I'm at Stanford, right? So like with a lot of breakout technologies, right? How can we improve this to embed in the user experience? And we did like a lot of work to this, right? We improved ZK proof generation. We added additional primitive, which is stealth addresses for capital efficiency. Then we had also last point, how can we improve speed of this proof generation, right? So people don't wait. And then we introduced TE, trusted execution environment, so basically machines that allow you to compute it this really fast. And we were also discussing so many other solutions. And finally, we are there, right? Fully composable, embedded privacy on public chains.
And what do your users say? What are some of the users' comments from that from working with you?
Unimaginable. No, I'm just uh,
That's a great. That's a great answer. Unimaginable. I like it. I like it.
yes. I mean,
So
it's initially like it was actually a super painful experience because we had so many things to improve, right? And our users also like it was painful for them as well, right? Because it's like them sharing this feedback for us because they wanted us to succeed. But now finally they're super happy, and with this new product that we are releasing now, which is a fully invisible composable wallet, we're finally there where everyone can say this is something that we were willing to have. No one was offering anything close to it, and Hinkal sold this.
awesome. Awesome. So I have a couple more things I want to discuss. One is I wish I were a fly on the wall at ETH Denver, right? I kind of know that Bybit's a hot topic. Other than that, what's the sentiment? What's the conversation? What's the focus?
No, I just posted, by the way, this morning on my Twitter that East Denver 2025 is phenomenal. And, it's truly phenomenal. And I don't know, maybe because I'm more intentional who I'm meeting, where I'm going to. But but I was always quite intentional on how I spend my time. But this year, I feel that all people here are just so fascinating. They're all true builders, right? And there's like a very little scam, very little pump and dump type of projects, right? They like everyone thinks about, okay, we were in the era and still somehow in the era of, of this like fake FDVs, right? Like fake projects where, pre-testnet or pre-mainnet, You launch token and then you just sell excitement, don't deliver anything, and there is no fundamental value. But now, like, I think people got burned out of it, right? They understood that, okay, like, we should really understand fundamental. And that's like, that also, transferred this knowledge to the project. So now project think, okay, like, is there really fundamental value? 100x from our competitor that allows us to unlock new primitive and onboard new people. And the reason for this is simple, right? Because I'm talking to a lot of founders who launched their tokens recently, right? And then what you hear from them is they launch on these like top exchanges. These exchanges kind of had like some expectation, right, that someone will buy their token, and no one is buying token. Why? Because there's fixed supply of buyers and unlimited supply of new tokens, right? So now ultimately, how can you differentiate this token, right? Like they're all super promising future of internet, right? So the only way to differentiate promise, right, from reality is like, do they deliver anything? What is due diligence? What is the team, right, behind this and everything else? So I'm super happy that we are finally entering this market.
Awesome. Yeah, ETH used to be where all the pumps and dumps happen. Now it's Solana. But I don't. But people are gonna be mad. I just said that, so I'm gonna take it back. We'll see what happens in the future. I want to find out though. One of the founder of Ethereum, or the figurehead of Ethereum. Vitalik Buterin, right? He has a vision for Ethereum's future. You know, how does your vision for Ethereum's future align or not or misalign with Vitalik's view?
Yeah, so my future is very misaligned from Vitalik's future, to be frank. And I'm following Vitalik for a while, and I think there's a problem. I mean, with Ethereum Foundation, broadly, right? That it operates as a very isolated environment. It builds its own stuff. It builds it in a very slow manner, right? Because from 2017 they're supposed to solve scalability problem. They couldn't solve it. It builds like from a very ideological and non-practical manner, right? And this is what we have like with roll-ups, right? Like roll-up strategy that basically depreciate the value of ETH, right? So I think what we got here is like really amazing technology, one of the first, right? Which is Ethereum. So we have this first mover advantage that really catalyzed and created motion for these new markets to be created, right? This is phenomenal. But then like very poor execution and non-business mindset, right? That basically like made this like created these problems, right? Of Ethereum rollups, no interoperability between rollups, right? Some security problems, and then, for example, Solana being like this holistic chain with high TPS, focused on business, right? And building with the build, like you're working with the builders, really striving now with in this market, right? So I think now, like what I see Vitalik is doing more proactive steps and finally listening business. And I will provide one example. 2 years ago, it was my first East Denver. When I arrived I went to one of the events, and I met like a group of people, and they were like sharing what they were doing. And what they were doing, it was like, hey guys, we know that Ethereum Foundation doesn't care about people, like real regular people and onboarding new, right? They purely care about this, ideological Ethereum decentralized future. And we are trying to bring businesses and work with foundation. So we bring this real world adoption to Ethereum, right? And then like when I was talking to them, they were sharing EF doesn't want to talk to them, right? So they don't care about this. So I think that's a fundamental problem of EF that Vitalik, I think, is solving with some institutional angle that they just introduced, right? They're solving like now we got in touch actually with one of the members that finally, cares about privacy and says, okay, like let's discuss this, how we can solve it. So I think finally this, we got him into war mode, and you can say about with his milady avatars, right? And hopefully it will lead us to better outcomes.
Sounds promising. It sounds good to me. So um, I definitely want to thank you for talking to me today. Enjoyed our conversation. I have really One last question now, and it's how can people find out more information about you, about Hinkal? How can they use your wallet? How can they use your solution? How can they do that?
Yeah, so our wallet is live. So we are for the past 2 years, right? We were improving, but really smart contract is the same. It's a non-upgradable, secure smart contract, and it's app.hinkal.pro, right? So you can connect with your wallet and create private address inside smart contract, and then do any type of transaction using it. Or you can download the whole wallet extension, right, and use it for all transactions that you do in a full privacy. You can follow us on Twitter, on Telegram, on Discord. We would love to chat, onboard people, really handhold and make sure that our users, your audience is super happy with our solution.
Awesome. Sounds great. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you, Jamil. It was a pleasure.